Just what are we gonna call the Washington football team? Well, except exactly that. We know one thing. We can't call them the Redskins anymore. Just now, the FCC fined me $5,000 for saying it, and I'm officially canceled. But today, we're gonna figure out what the best and worst names for the team are. And not facetiously. These are all names that you can actually put down money and bet on through a real sportsbook app. So someone in the desert believes there's at least been discussion that the Washington football team will adopt one of these monikers. What are we really going to name this NFL football team is coming up right after this. This video is brought to you by MANSCAPED.com. Summer's in its last days, and that means only one thing. It's male grooming season. Oh, and football. Sorry, it's always male grooming season. That's why Manscaped created the Perfect Package 3.0, which gives you the perfect tools for your family jewels. And even though there's all this fantastic gear that's in this kit, like the Lawnmower 3.0, there is also Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant. What's that you say? You didn't know this was a thing? You put deodorant on your armpits, don't you? Then why not on literally the smelliest place on your body? Crop Preserver features soothing aloe and quick absorbing gel that keeps you fresh all day long. Trust me, they aren't going to freshen you up down there without proven ingredients so that you can sit or run in comfort all day long. And it's great for on the go. So after this video, head on over to Manscaped from my custom link below. Order the Perfect Package 3.0, which has Crop Preserver included and also comes with Crop Reviver. Order now and I'll side you 20% off, free shipping, and 2 free gifts. Again, hit my link below. Summer might be coming to an end, but you want your balls and others to thank you all year round. Manscaped.com. We're gonna start with the best names. Number 5, the Washington REDHAWKS. The Red Tails and the Red Wolves have been tossed around as potential new names, presumably because of their color-friendly nature. But when you break it down, while the Red Tails have significance in this country's history as well as in Black history, the Tuskegee Airmen are associated with, well, Tuskegee, not Washington. The Red Wolves, well, have you ever even seen a red wolf? That's just silly. The best red option on the board is REDHAWKS. Red Hawk has a number of respectful Native American associations, including the Sioux Chief Red Hawk. It's a way to honor their history and their present and possibly making good after a near century of slander that the name Redskins created, allegedly. Number 4, the Washington Lincolns. How do you pay tribute to the president that ended slavery, pioneered the top hat, and loved theater? By sticking his name on the jersey of a team whose leadership is as awful as his was good. Abraham Lincoln is one of the most revered figures in American history. He's basically mythologized, which makes this name an upgraded version of the Titans. It feels like justice to replace a name that had a negative connotation and the nation at our worst with a president who strived to achieve the best. It makes too much sense. They make their logo a top hat, build a fake Lincoln Memorial in the south end zone of FedEx Field, and hire Daniel Day-Lewis as the new mascot. My only advice would be to invest in a good left tackle because, as we know, Lincoln tended to struggle with the blind side. Too soon? Yeah, way too soon. Number 3, the Washington Warriors. Sure, Warriors lacks originality, but it makes up for it with prestige, a championship association, and that sweet W alliteration. Shout out to Will Wheaton and Walter White. Warriors gives off the same vibe as Braves, Seminoles, or Chiefs, a relentless fighting spirit, but is ambiguous enough so as to not catch any heat from the cancel crew. The best part of this nickname, the Fantastic Warriors chant from the movie of the same name.
Warriors, come out to play.
If only there were fans in the stands to do it. Plus, this name works better for football than it does for basketball. In football, it's actually legal to set moving screens. Number 2, the Washington Veterans. This probably would have been the perfect name for Washington when they were coached by George Allen, who notoriously hated rookies and traded all of his draft picks for established players who were known as the over-the-hill gang. It still works, and it serves as a way to win over the fans that stopped watching the NFL when they decided that kneeling was disrespectful to the troops. Regardless, the Veterans would be a perfectly respectful name that replaces a decidedly disrespectful one. It honors veterans of war, older players like Alex Smith, and those who fought in the many lawsuits inside the Washington front office. And number 1, the Washington football team. Well, this is simple. Just keep it the way it is right now. Calling yourself the football team is bold, singular, and original. Much like the way soccer teams call themselves football clubs, it gives off an air of professionalism, not resorting to mascots like a high school team. The football team, much like that band called The Band, implies that they are the foremost football team. Washington has already gone through the trouble of creating a logo, changing all the signs, and thinking of the name in the first place. This is truly the lazy man solution, and thus the best one. The only way to improve the name would be to go by Washington Team Football, especially for abbreviation purposes. And now for the top 5 worst nicknames for the artists formerly known as the Redskins. Yes, these are names you can actually bet on. Number 5, the Washington Arlingtons. What can you say about this name other than that it's dead on arrival? The name refers to Arlington National Cemetery in Arlington County, Virginia. It's the final resting place of notable Americans such as John F. Kennedy, Ted Kennedy, and well, really a lot of Kennedys. It would also mark a million bad puns. It's like you can see them now. Arlington's buried by the Giants. Arlington suffered a Viking funeral in Minnesota. You can see how annoying that would get. Imagine if the LA Rams changed their names to the LA Hollywood Forevers. Those poor celebrities can't even get some peace and quiet even in the afterlife. The Arlingtons, while meant to show respect to fallen veterans of the US military, would be just another killer way to get made fun of for another 3-13 season. Number 4, the Washington Monuments. The Washington Monument isn't just a 3D Rorschach test, it's undeniably a dick. There's no arguing that. The 555-foot, that's 169 meters, nice, edifice in the National Mall not only pays tribute to our nation's first president, but it actively shames all men suffering from erectile dysfunction. Dick jokes aside, the Washington football team, should they adopt the Monument moniker, might as well sign Joe Flacco to play quarterback, serving not only as a signal caller, but the official team mascot considering his statue-like pocket presence. Washington obviously has the same baggage as a lot of other founding fathers, which we'll touch on later with an even worse name. This one, needless to say, is a monumentally bad idea. Number 3, the Washington Kings. Hold on, I'm no history major, but wasn't that the whole point of being American, to rid ourselves of the tyranny of the kings? Something about taxation without representation, throwing tea into a harbor, not having to wear powdered wigs. Save that for the expansion team in London. Also, do you really want to share a name with the most dysfunctional team in the NBA? Really, when the name Warriors is right there for the taking? It's like if the hockey team in Seattle chose to be called the Browns. It's setting yourself up for failure as well as mockery when the Washington Kings are consistently in the basement of the NFC rather than atop the throne. Number 2, the Washington Red Clouds. The name Red Cloud refers to the Lakotan leader who defeated the United States Army in 1866 and signed the famous Treaty of Fort Laramie, which established some of the first Native American reservations. In a vacuum, it might be a nice tribute, but given the fact that this team was named after a Native American slur for the last century, it's probably best to wipe the slate clean and go after a less controversial name. According to a biography, John F. Kennedy considered naming a missile on the 41 for Freedom submarine after Red Cloud, but was advised against it for fear of it being called pro-communist. Something tells me that the name would be greeted with the same sentiment in 2020, while at the same time being called an appropriation of Native American culture. This is one strong stay away and surefire way to piss off everyone, right in Dan Snyder's wheelhouse, of course. And for a bonus name, the Washington Skins. Oh, this'll really fool them, won't it? Just take the first 3 letters of the old name and you're good to go. The Cleveland Ians might have to do this in the future, too. This would be the literally most half-assed name change possible, but in all fairness, it would make rebranding very easy. Just get an eraser. When you take the red out of skins, it just sounds like they're named after the skin suit that Buffalo Bill was famous for in Silence of the Lambs. Needless to say, a tuck dance in the end zone would be extremely off-putting. Yeah, and every week they're gonna be playing the shirts. And the number 1 worst name you can actually bet on: the Washington Jeffersons. This is pretty much a cut and dry no. Washington got rid of the name Redskins to escape being problematic, so switching to the last name of a guy that owned is probably not going to achieve much progress. Unless, of course, this name refers to the television program that aired from 1975 to 1985, then in that case, it gets a full-throated endorsement. Also, imagine what happens when Justin Jefferson goes off for 100 yards and a couple tutties against Washington. He owns the team, he beat them so badly they named the team after him, etc. It's a tightrope that's simply not worth it on multiple levels. Sure, we know that Thomas Jefferson penned the most important document in our nation's history, and he oversaw Lewis and Clark's expedition to the western coast of the United States, but putting his name next to Washington is probably about as bad as just calling them the Washington Snyders. The lesson in all of this is to find a name that firmly falls on the other side of the aisle than the one that disrespected a marginalized group in our country for 90 years. But whether it's one of the best options or one of the worst, we all know one thing. Someone is going to hate it. Fare thee well, Washington Teamskins. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do not forget to check out our sponsor, MANSCAPED, from the link below. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to my next video.